Good afternoon, everyone. I'm Dorian Moore, and depending on how I may know some of you, I wear a number of different hats. I am, some people may know me as an architect practicing in Detroit. Others know me as an educator at the University of Windsor, and still others know me as a professional consulting with the Center for Cities at the University of Windsor. And I think the way that I'm approaching this subject is for us to change the narrative and to not think about the issue of a border, to not think about the river as a border, but to think of it as a seam, right, that connects us, and to start to tell the story of what's happening on both sides of the border. And this gets to what I do as an architect and an urban designer. And I look at the physical conditions of cities through graphics and drawings, diagrams, and photographs, and I start to understand, what's happening in each of the areas. And the way that I'd like to have us look at this is from the standpoint of what has happened in Windsor, what has happened in Detroit. And part of my perspective on this that I should add is I have my feet on both sides of the border, typically. I've lived, as of this year, I've lived half my entire life in Windsor and the other half in Detroit. So I'm really down the middle. And I think this gives me an interesting perspective. I even went as far as to have one child in Detroit and one child in Windsor. So, and I think there's a strong tie there. Now, the work that I do is really looking at, right now, from a professional research standpoint and an academic research standpoint, looking at the river and the connections to the river from the standpoint of the downtowns of Windsor and Detroit, but also some of the specific neighborhoods and districts within those two cities. And this started with a research project that I've done with Dr. Rodney and another colleague at the university, at York University in Toronto, looking at the historical area in Detroit of Black Bottom, a predominantly African-American neighborhood within the city, and a similar situation in Windsor, Ontario, the McDougall corridor, and looking at the physical spaces and development and disinvestment in those two areas over time. And so that got me thinking about what else is there about Windsor and Detroit that may have similarities. And so I'm in the process right now of looking at other connections and trying to tell stories that relate between the two cities and across the river. So currently, two other areas that I'm looking at are Indian Village in Detroit, which Detroiters are familiar with, and Walkerville in Windsor, which Windsorites are familiar with. Two historic districts that are very important in each of their cities. So with very similar physical characteristics. So what are the spaces and places and stories that can be generated from these two places? The other place that I'm looking at is Fort Wayne in Detroit area, Fort Malden and Amherstburg in the Windsor area, and what are the stories on either side of the border that could relate. So I think if we start to tell our stories together about the place that we're living in, I think that will start to strengthen our ties and make us forget about all the political machinations that are going on today, and start to focus on the socio-cultural issues that we really need to focus on in order to make this entire region stronger. And I will leave this in just saying that I'm starting to take a deeper look from the standpoint of an architect, of buildings and spaces and places, the streets, plazas, parks that make up the stories between these two cities. And that's it. Thank you.
So hello, everybody. I'm Jeanette Pierce, and I'm the president of City Institute, which is an organization I started in its original iteration 20 years ago this month. Wow. What do we do? I mean, the short version is that we help people understand and appreciate where they live, work, and go to school. By connecting people to the places that they live and work and go to school, it is a better economic impact for everybody, and we do that through experiential learning. We've taken 160,000 people on experiential learning journeys throughout Detroit, Metro Detroit, and also Windsor as well. I am a personal big fan of Windsor and spend as much time as I can over there. What I'm going to do right now is actually do a quick version of why Detroit, Greater Detroit, Windsor, and some of my favorite pieces of Detroit and some of my favorite pieces of Windsor. And in general, this story of our region and the amazing assets that it has. Okay, so let's go. So we are doing this, that. Okay, I guess we're going back to that. I think there might be a couple missing. But so world-class museums, we take these for granted. Here in Detroit, we have the Detroit Institute of Arts. The New York Times art critic said that Diego Rivera's Detroit Industry Mural is the closest thing America has to the Sistine Chapel. All that old money stuff, they can't just create that today in places that exist because the air conditioning does, right? And so we could go, the Charles H. Wright Museum, we have the Historical Museum, and we have Motown, and we have a whole bunch, which I could do a whole, but I also want to see and make sure people know about the really great places in Windsor as well. And this is not an exhaustive list, just samples of things, like the Chimchuk Museum, and Fort Malden is such a model of what could be with Fort Wayne. Professional sports, I mean, this brings us all together, right? We have the Lions coming over to do an event in Windsor, we have the Tigers, Red Wings, and we have the DC. All right, so that brings us together, but also if you haven't been to a Spitfires hockey game in Windsor, you got to put that on your list as well. Theater and film. Detroit is one of the it says the second largest theater district in the country, but this is a picture of the Capitol Theater in Windsor, and the WIF is one of the most amazing film festivals in all of North America, if not the world. And we take these for granted too. Other cities don't have these historic theaters. The Capitol Theater is built in 1920. You have the Fox Theater built in 1928. These movie palaces, the gem of the century. Again, I don't have all the time to do it. But architecture too. So we have the Guardian Building, built as a cathedral of finance in 1929. But if you haven't been to the Armory Building in downtown Windsor, which was opened in 1902 and is now home to University of Windsor's School of Creative Arts, or SOCA, as well as the Center for Cities team. It is literally right when you come out from the tunnel and is an amazing adaptive reuse. And also the John Muir Library, which is a 1921 firehouse that was converted into an amazing library and won a national award for adaptive reuse. Then the David Whitney Building, just in this example of this one little slide, but we could go on and on and on about this historic architecture, these amazing buildings that we have on both sides. Public art is another thing we really share. In Detroit, we've painted over 600 murals in the last 10 years alone. And we hear, I think, a little bit more about that. But if you don't know, Windsor has dozens and dozens and dozens of arts spaces. Some pictures here on what would be, your left, the Maiden Lane and the Whiff Art Alley. And this picture that I took last time we were over there, this painting in Maiden Lane, that's tunnel to Detroit, is actually a Charles McGee painting. And Charles McGee, obviously, was an eminent Detroit artist, and still, his pieces can be found everywhere. And my favorite mural in the city is The Girl with the D Earring by Sidney James. But again, both sides having amazing public art. But wait, there's more, and there are some missing pieces, but that's okay. The parks. that I was going to do before this is our river fronts, right? So we have the river walk, but when I was like 16 years old, my friend and I just wanted to go sit by the water, and that really wasn't a thing in Detroit. We had like, really important things to talk about, and so we're like, let's go to Canada. And they said, where are you going? And we said, Tim Hortons. Because we didn't have them over here. And we went and we were able to sit by the water and walk along the water long before our river walk was happening, right? But also you have from Amherstburg to Lighthouse Cove on the Windsor side that have all kinds of parks and spaces. And of course, our river walk is amazing and getting more amazing with the But Wait, There's More opening just next week with Ralph Wilson Park, an $80 million space that is going to be awesome. And of course, the Ambassador Bridge, but most important, or replacing the Ambassador Bridge, hopefully. I mean, really, who's going to take the Ambassador Bridge after this? Okay, the Gordie Howe International Border Crossing. But with the path on it, you can actually go in this map in the Detroit Greenways Coalition. You can get all kinds of information about how you'll be able to take your bike from all the way up there to all the way across to all the way to Iron, as part of our Iron Bell Trail. And that's obviously connected to our Joe Louis Greenway in Detroit. I mean, amazing things. One slide that didn't pop up was the restaurants, bars that we have on both sides, that we have some amazing food. And so many of them are locally owned small businesses. And I always say you can taste the passion when the owner's in the kitchen. So I had a picture of Bao Bao Fair in Detroit, and it's one of my favorite restaurants. But where do I go for like my birthday lunch? It's Shanghai Bistro in Windsor for the Xiaolongbao XLV soup dumplings. And for Detroiters, you might not realize, because we do not have soup dumplings in Detroit. The soup is in the dumpling, people. It is so good, it just melts in your mouth. And then you got Petrella's street food, Italian sandwiches, by our own Reno here in the amazing Ford City neighborhood. If you haven't been to Ford City, there's amazing small businesses and a really great sense of community over there. And I just can't talk enough. Is that my time? I can't talk enough about the assets that we have. So this is just like a little tiny sampling of the story we can be telling about our region. And I purposely, obviously this is Detroit and Windsor, but we also, all those 131 suburbs, this region, I could spend another hour talking about all the assets that we have here. And the one part, because it was on the side of it, but the wineries in Windsor, guys, do you know there are 18 wineries along the Lake Erie coast? You don't have to go to Traverse City. I mean, you can, but it'll take a little longer. Here we have 18 wineries along the Lake Erie coast, and then we also have a national park 1 hour away in Point Pelee National Park. So all of these things are a benefit of living in this binational region. And I'm really excited to learn more myself about what's going on the other side and to help spread the word. And I always sum up everything I do, but I adjusted it for this presentation. Greater Detroit Windsor is big enough to matter in the world and small enough for you to matter in it. And never forget that.
Thinking about how everyone here mentioned the river in some capacity. Dorian, you referred to it as a seam. I think my question for the panel, which I do have now, is what would it mean to kind of recenter the region, like to kind of bring it back to the river? Because I think what we've seen over the 20th century and into the 21st is really this movement away from the river. Like everything has been from the early settlement period onward, moving outwards. And I've often thought about Windsor and Detroit as the world's largest international suburban donut. Like we've got this belt of development, and all of the city building is happening out there. But it's we've also talked about a number of really important adaptive reuse projects, right? So, I mean, I think this question could be thought about in a number of different ways, but just to leave it with everyone as food for thought is, what would it mean to recenter the region or to bring it back to the river? I don't know if anyone wants to say anything about that.
So the way I would look at it is to start to look at opportunities that Windsor and Detroit can work on together. Use the Gordie Howe Bridge as the inciting incident, if you will, for a new relationship, and to think about things that can connect us physically. I think that's the easiest way to start to make that connection. And one of them, we sometimes we talk about seriously, sometimes we talk about it jokingly, but the idea of the ferry going across the river, I think if that were to actually happen, I think could be a very important thing from a connectivity standpoint. The more that we can see the river going this way, as opposed to the ships running along it as a pass-through space, the better off we're going to be. And I think it's important for people to be able to actually see something concrete in order to start it.
That's great. I agree. And I think now is the time, because we are investing so heavily in our riverfronts, right? Obviously on our side, a little later to the game on it, but we are bringing people to the riverfront more and more and more, you know, and then they look, and when they see it, I can see Canada from my backyard, you know, but a lot of people, like, you know, you literally don't see it sometimes, so bringing people to the river will help. And this is, and I think that opportunity to start conversations about things that we've tried a million times and it doesn't work, but that was our river walk. I mean, decades of talking about doing a river walk, decades of trying to get it done. What made it happen was really finally collaboration, partnerships, relationships that really stemmed out of our 300th birthday in 2001. But I think that's what we're seeing now. The time is right to bring those. I mean, it's crisis, but crisis can breed opportunity, can breed innovation. And I feel like we're getting out of our silos more now than ever in this region. So this might be the opportunity to not give up on some of those bigger ideas like the ferry.
Let's see, is this on? Yeah. The secret is that the power button is on the bottom. Not the button on the top, no, not where you'd expect it to work. I guess what I would add, you know, so like two things can contribute to the revitalization of the riverfront. One that has happened extremely gradually and painfully is the transition from what were once basically fully industrialized riverfronts on both sides to treating the Detroit River as primarily a recreational space, and that's opened up the possibility of reinvestment alongside of it. You know, but on the Detroit side, we have absolutely no mechanism to contain sprawl. And so, you know, even as we have made strides toward having a more attractive and inviting riverfront in downtown Detroit, that donut effect isn't really being alleviated because we are still pushing outward at a rapid clip for no obvious reason. I think, at least in theory, that is more manageable on the Canadian side because the municipalities there encompass, you know, land all the way out to the countryside, to the periphery. And even though I think Windsor has a reputation as a sprawling place, there's sprawl and then there's Metro Detroit. And so that's something else I would say we have to work on concurrently with like the physical investment along the riverfront.
I think one, like the question of recentering the region, especially with the continuous wildfires during the summers, when we understand that these, you know, whatever happens over in Canada also impacts us, and it's all connected. I think that obviously water is more tangible, and we can see the river, but all these cycles are connected, and our air is something that I think both, especially when you look at Windsor, when you look at Detroit, even on the Windsor side, when you look at the city, I was at Belle Isle, and I was looking you can just see like a layer when you're looking like within Detroit, like the smog, and when you're on the side I personally go to Windsor for the riverfront. I like the, just looking into the city, actually seeing the skyline that you don't get to see from afar. And I think that one thing is just connecting it to the air quality that's impacting both sides. And yeah, I think that's one thing, especially during the summers. I think that's a continuous issue on both sides. It's I think conversations of air quality in Detroit's pretty bad, and then Windsor's also being impacted too, and we're all connected in that sense. I think that's a recentering, is thinking about the air.
Yeah, and I'll just add briefly that I think from a really like a sort of humanistic storytelling perspective, that it really is an invitation to think about defiantly in these political times, that borders are not actually hard. They are hardened by politics, but they're fluid. In reality, the river is not a hardened border, as the environmental questions show us, as the effluents, but as the histories of migration into the area, which used to take place via the riverways. And so it's reclaiming a history and then reclaiming a politics that refuses to see this border in particular as a barrier. When for most species, for most substances, it can't operate that way. I mean, it's utopian, but it seems really important to reintroduce some of those narratives, post 9/11 in particular.
Yeah, welcome back. This is session 3. It's kind of a two-part. So we have a bigger group. We're going to hear from 5 people first about specific programs and the work they're doing in program work. And then we have some sparks of on-the-ground insight and activism that's going to join the fold. Should be exciting. And then, as I mentioned, Josh, I'll call him out because he's on this list, could not be here in person because he didn't feel safe crossing. We were hoping maybe you could join on Zoom, but we'll hear more about that part of it later. Anyway, so Josh is here in spirit. And I have as a matter of starting this off, I have a little bit of a presentation myself. So I'll go and then we'll hear from the folks listed there. And I want to talk really briefly about this candidate questionnaire that you can read all about, or at least a little bit about, on the Substack. It's this poll, or questionnaire, I guess, that we conducted in the lead up to the August primary and November. When are we voting? November 4th? 4th. Everybody vote. It's a big local election. I work with our friend Alex Hill. Is he still here? His class was here or is here. Is anybody from his class still here? Yeah. Woo. So who's here from Wayne State? Who's here from University of Windsor? Either now or in the past. It's okay. U of M. I saw some U of M. Yeah. Yeah. Any others? Call them out if I'm missing. It's all right. It's all right. Alex Hill teaches an undergrad class, and we work with Close Up at U of M, right? What is Close Up?
The Center for Local, State, and Urban Policy.
Yeah. They're like, yeah, that's, I put someone on the spot. I'm not wearing my glasses, so I can't see who said that. They're like the gold standard for this kind of work. We wanted to baseline local candidates' sentiment around regionalism as something we could revisit over time. Maybe we would do a Canadian version at some point if the stars align. We wanted to ask candidates about what they thought about regional collaboration. So how do you do that? You ask the clerks for everybody who's running. And that looks like this. It's a bunch of PDF files, Excel files. It's public information, who's running for local office, but it's how they filled out the form, and it's their contact information. A lot of times it's just their personal emails and phone numbers. Sometimes they have campaign versions. Hopefully nobody can, get too much. I mean, this is just for illustrative purposes only. But it was a lot of work to just corral it. I did use ChatGPT to organize it, interesting process. And I started emailing on July 4th because I was feeling patriotic, I guess, or trying to. It took 3 hours to send individual emails to that list. I did that 5 more times between July and the end of September, at which point I stopped because I was getting 1 or 2 responses every time. But, the last one that came back was from the Detroit, one of the mayor candidates for Detroit. And it was because I tried to send it via a different email and was like, hey, you didn't fill this out, kind of is a bad look. It came back right away. We got 60 responses total, of which 55 came back filled out. A few people said, nope, I don't live in Detroit. And I was like, well, this is about the region. They're like, I get it, nope. There was one request to meet in person over beers in Royal Oak, which I did. Yeah. Candidates were from across the Metro Detroit area. Pretty good swath, right? Detroit, Pontiac, and the Dearborns produced the most numerous responses. Half of the people who responded said that they grew up in Metro Detroit, and so they could say they grew up anywhere. But if they grew up in Metro Detroit, half of them said they grew up in Detroit proper. So to Cooper's point, we have this problem of just spreading out everywhere. And in that sense, Detroit is very well represented in the region because it is the genesis of so many people in the region. I just want to share 4 summary charts. So I put this on my Substack. You can QR code it if you want. I'll leave it up for a second. We broke 500 people this week, which I think I shared earlier, which is very exciting. It's very small. So it went from 494 a few days ago to 500. Thank you. Thank you. You can sign up now if you want. So these are the slides. Sorry, did someone need this again?
We were saying we'll sign up right now.
Oh yeah, sign up.
501, 502,
Yeah.
503.
Okay, just 4 quick slides. If you were to make one aspect of local government work best for the greatest number of people in Metro Detroit, what would it be? By a pretty fair margin, transit was number 1. Now, that is, it didn't surprise me too much, and it's interesting, in a list that transit is still such a huge issue in people's mind's eye. So I have some more to say about that, but maybe at another point in terms of what that means in terms of next steps, because it seems politically that we're at this place now where we're like, yeah, we gotta make this thing work. I think it's about implementation and resources, frankly. Land use and planning and or zoning, we heard a lot about that earlier. There's a lot of interest in having that be more coordinated at the regional level. And then the one that doesn't have, the 17.5 at the top is economic development, interestingly enough. So those are the top 3, and then a bunch of services fall after that. Next, thinking specifically about land use planning, what do you think your jurisdiction's involvement in regional land use planning effort is? So, a lot of people, most people, or more than half, think that it's not enough. So that too, I think, is a sign of hope. Just right, or too much, or smaller, and there's a pretty big vector in many of these that they just don't know, which is also interesting. So that I thought was a good one. There's been a debate about the number of local government units in Michigan. In your opinion, does Michigan, so this is the statewide perspective, so it's a little bit, but this again is from Close Up, which views it statewide. So does Michigan have too many, too few, or about the right number of local units of government? So half, or just about half, think, oh, it's great, it's just about right, it feels good, feels right. Yeah, that's my response. Interestingly, though, about half on the other side either strongly think they're too many, or a number think they don't know. And could we, through education, through keeping these conversations going in a broader sense, start to change that so it becomes a different pie chart over time? And then finally, this one was most hopeful to me in terms of these next steps. Would you be interested in attending training for elected official office and or attending program related to collaboration? Everybody wants to be collaborative, right? So, but 80% almost said yes. So we're gonna definitely follow up with them, maybe for beers. But that was, yeah, that's it. So I just wanted to provide that as a little bit of a data point in terms of where quote unquote leadership, sits on this. I have this perspective that I go back and forth, I vacillate, flip-flop, whatever, in terms of this specific idea about what leadership, political leadership especially, means. What's its nature? Do people stake out claims on issues they believe will truly improve the quality of life for constituents, even if those ideas are hard or unpopular, or do they get in front of issues that they think there's energy around and then sort of claim them for their own? And it's probably a little bit of both, but it's that tension I find interesting. Okay, food for thought. Now let's get on to the panel, which is super interesting and people are doing super cool things. So you heard from Reno earlier. We're gonna hear from Reno again. He's doing an important text right now, but he has great things to say, but we'll get back to him. I'm just gonna go from left to right and start with Annika Smith. And I just want to hear in 5 minutes or so a little bit more about you and the program that you're working in and why you love it so much.
It's on her.
It's on?
Yes.
Thank you so much, Francis. And thanks to all. This has been just a wonderful day so far. And the people who have had to leave, I hear them saying, I really don't want to go because I want to hear the rest of what's coming. It just keeps getting better. So thank you for your leadership. I've been introduced as a co-lead of the RCE. I'm part of the team with Lee Rodney and Edwin Tam and Nadia Harjwar, who have co-led the Windsor efforts with the RCE, along with Elena and Donna and Ahmed Ezzedine and Steffi Hartwell on the Wayne side. But I wanted to, I guess, just take a little bit of a step back to talk about, from the Windsor side, what it means to be in this moment where cities and urbanism, and in the cross-border space in particular, are becoming so important. In my sort of day job, I'm an associate professor in the Faculty of Law at Windsor, and I founded in 2019 the Center for Cities, which I think at the time was a next effort and a sort of undying effort by many, including Dorian, who you've heard from today, and Lee, and others on our campus, to keep focusing on urbanization, on thinking about the city as a really important organizing entity in a city in the community that often has trouble thinking of itself as an urban space. Regionalization is a bit of a double-edged sword, and I think often we think about the region so much that we don't think about the city at the core of that. And so when we lost the planning program in 2005 as well, so that was sort of another piece. And so I think 2019 was really a moment where we thought, let's try again. And we got a little ways along the way, and the Center for Cities was the venue through which we were trying to build something urban. And then in 2020, we got this amazing outreach from Wayne State to say, hey, we see you, we want to do something. We are thinking about urban and thinking about getting this United Nations designation focused around sustainable urban development. And our vision, as Francis and others have said all the way through today, our vision is actually the cross-border urban region. And that was such a gift. We always say, we always in Windsor feel a little bit invisible to the Detroit side, and over, and this week has been just an incredible moment for that, over and over, hearing Detroit say, we value you, we want to be part of efforts that include you, and how can we help? So I guess I just wanted to sort of shine a light on that. I think universities also can be a little bit invisible, but you heard Elena talk really compellingly about all the reasons that I think we still matter, even as we collectively as universities fight for our relevance right now. We are really important from a data perspective, and this is a region that needs data more than ever, as we've heard all the way through today. That data also has to, through partnership and relationships, as we've heard, needs to be impactful in the community, and we, at our best as universities, are a way through which that can happen, bringing data out into the community, innovating and trying to make change in that way. We have a convening function. We're here at a university today, and that's in part because universities are places for exchange of ideas and the building of relationships, and so we continue, I think, to have that opportunity. And then lastly, we're training the next generation, and so if we want, Elena talked about the interdisciplinary opportunities, cities and urban spaces and this urban region, this cross-border urban region, need all the disciplines, and so places like the RCE and the work that we're doing, I think, are opportunities to continue building interdisciplinary and community-facing opportunities within that. I'll pass the floor to others who have much more to say in just a second. I just wanted to say lastly what I think is so important today, and what I really see as the opportunity over these last months, and particularly these last couple of weeks, is all the different pathways through which cross-border work is happening right now. So we're here at a university, but we're coordinating today, or we're co-hosting with, or helping supporting Francis's grassroots opportunity organization. We're hearing from Kim today, who's running the Detroit River Project. We're hearing about TRU and the work they've been doing cross-border on transit. These things are all happening. We've got Brittany and Ryan who are speaking to the sort of higher level institutional collaborations. Many were at Michigan Central earlier this week, and we're seeing governments collaborate in a different way. And then lastly, hopefully the universities are there and taking up their spaces as well. And there are many more that we're not talking about today, but I think that's the opportunity, is just to be across all of those spaces and to keep doing the things that we're all doing. So thank you.
So, yes, thank you. Yes, thanks. Yes, Kim Simmons from the Detroit River Project, who I met this past year, and this was a Jeanette connection. Jeanette's like, yes, thank you. She's like, you have to talk to Kim. It's like, okay, and we talked, and Kim has a fascinating story. So if you haven't heard about the River Project, Kim, take it away.
Kim, take it away. Okay, it is on. Well, my first comment, Jeanette, let me just add just a little piece, okay? The Essex County Black Historical Research Society, as a matter of fact, we had our our annual meeting yesterday. I was re-elected vice president. No big deal, this is like 15 years of being the vice president. But we actually did those 2 tours in partnership with the Leddy Library of the University of Windsor. And it's both the McDougall corridor and Sandwich. So we do the tours. Matter of fact, we just did them a couple weeks ago. There's something going on in Windsor. I'm not sure what it was, but anyway, yeah, you can go online, look it up, and they actually online, there's a guided tour that you can take. So just to follow that. Okay, I am in a room with people interested in cross-border cooperation and partnership. And I want to tell you, as what I consider I am the grand dam of this. I have been working on cross-border, and we're not going to talk about my birth. I am both Canadian and American. I'm a binational citizen, born in Detroit. My mom was Canadian, and we have been here almost 200 years, since 1833. I'm an Underground Railroad descendant, 5th generation, from Sandwich, and I'm also a Mayflower descendant. Consider that. So I come from the enslavers and the enslaved. So that's a whole nother conversation that we're not going to have today, but it's true. But I consider myself the grand dam of what we're all gathered here. My statement to everyone here is, congratulations, you caught up. I have been talking about cross-border cooperation, working together since 2003. So who's in math? Who has a math class? So tell me, how long is that? 22 years. Officially 22 years. In 2003, I literally was in conversation with the National Park Service on this side. As an Underground Railroad descendant, my background is nothing near what I do today. I was literally a branch manager at what used to be the NBD system, but was always interested in our heritage, and as I just stated, the two pieces of who I am in my DNA means that I've got a whole lot of stories to tell about my family, and I do. But it also is the driver of what I do then and do now. So I became officially the network partner for the Underground Railroad Network to Freedom program, which is an initiative out of the National Park Service. I was the Michigan network partner, the only one. So if you thought you had a ditch in your backyard, and it's got to be connected to the Underground Railroad, the Underground Railroad coordinators in Nebraska called Kim and said, would you please go talk to this lady, because we don't have the time. That started the mission. In 2005, I started writing designations. The first one was actually a program. I have a program called Carolyn Quarles, A Family Legacy of Freedom, which is my family. And that was nominated and became a national program partner recognized by the National Park Service, still is. So that's 20 years ago. We've been talking this. And I have written in since 3 other designations. One, how many know where the Skillman Library is? Okay, I wrote that. That's a National Historic Site, and there's no marker in case you didn't know. And yes, I wrote that on behalf of the city in 2016. There's 2 others one in the state of Illinois, one in Wisconsin, that I've actually authored on behalf of the Park Service and are part of the National Archives. We're not going to dwell on the Park Service today because, okay, we'll just let that go for now. But the mission I have been on was driven by that. In 2006, I literally started a conversation that is almost 20 years ago, talking about what I see as a viable opportunity, and that is having our river, yes, the river that divides us and brings us together, designated as a UNESCO World Heritage Site for its story. Remember, this region is older than this country, our history. Our city, this side, officially was established in 1701. Established, I didn't say founded. People were here. The indigenous, this is still their land, and they were here when Mr. Cadillac showed up. 1701, so we technically, this city is 75 years older than our country. So we got stories to tell. And believe you me, the other side of the river has got a whole lot of stories to tell. Together, it's a mission that I have been on to tell those stories, literally, officially since 2006. And I got people who have listened. I've started writing a list that we can go in until later, but how many of you have stood on the floor of the United Nations at General Assembly and spoke? I've done it twice. Invitation. You can't show up at the front door at the United Nations and say, hi, I'm here. No, I was part of the official VIP group, still am, when the United Nations actually unveiled the Ark of Return, which is the international memorial to the victims of the transatlantic slave trade. That was 2015. And to be exact, it was March the 25th. That's the day of remembrance officially through the United Nations. And what did I talk about when I was at the General Assembly in front of a room full of people from everywhere in the world? Here, home. And why it's such a special place. And let there be no mistake, there are people and other people other than us that know that. Here's the problem. We've never acknowledged it until now. I was literally, Annika and I were both at a meeting day before yesterday in downtown Detroit Partnership, and I think we're going to hear from the River Collaborative, I think. We were literally listening to all these wonderful things and who's getting on board and what have you. I've told the United Nations is literally gagging, trying to get this region engaged because we're such an important piece of the economy in both countries. May 2024, last year, the UN ambassador to, at that time, to the United States UN ambassador to UNESCO. We literally, we flew in and we missed a meeting opportunity in Paris and came home and it got rearranged. But I and my team actually sat down with the UN ambassador, the United States UN ambassador to UNESCO, and literally discussed what we're talking about right now. And she listened intently and said, oh my God, and I told her of the book we published in 2016, Wayne State Press, A Fluid Frontier. You all can go out the door and go down to the bookstore and buy this. We are published, our stories. Since 2016, it was the nonfiction book of the year for the state of Michigan. She sat intently and listened to my spiel as I give to you now and to others that are part of the Detroit River Project's collective volunteers and said, what is taking you guys so long? And I was just, what answer do I have? Well, nobody really has gotten, we're not really there. Well, that's not quite true because the Detroit River Project actually possesses 7 United States congressional resolutions that says the work we're doing should happen. And that started in 2011. I've had 7. The last one was 2021. What do? As of last year, we had started a pilot project with our educational program. We have a 10-case study educational curriculum describing the cross-border story of this region. We use the backdrop as the Underground Railroad, but it tells the story of what this region is all about. We are about freedom. Stop and think about it. Resistance is who we are. We were born for this moment that we are experiencing right now. We are born for it. But the 10-case study curriculum was actually sanctioned by, bless his heart, Senator Levin, of course, prior to his death, of course. But this has been in the works for the last 10 years, since 2016. And it's been piloted twice. And we are now actually implementing it into DPSCD. As of January, all 8th graders in DPSCD are going to have access to a curriculum. So we're talking about all the 8th graders in the Detroit public school system on local history, which to other people besides us is actually international history. But that's not all. Windsor is actually running it too. The Windsor Public School District and the Catholic School District are both running at the same time a history that is ours, shared. It's a mirror. But I'm not stopping there because let me finish this statement. The last thing I need is Toronto has come on board. So this is not small. And I just wanted to say that thank goodness you all have caught up.
All right, thank you. So we're gonna pass you, but we'll come back, Petra. This is Petra, we'll come back to Petra. Brittany, just real fast, River Collaborative View, why you love it, and what's happening, what's going on with that?
Well, Wonderful. Well, first of all, thank you for inviting me and thank you for organizing this. I mean, was it done this morning? Have we thanked Francis for all the work already? Before I get into my spiel, I'll say I'm a little distracted. I don't know what I'm about to say because I just keep thinking of all the things the last panel was talking about, and Kim, what you're talking about, and I don't even want to give you my spiel. I just want to build on all that, right? So what a wonderful opportunity for all of us to keep this conversation going. Thank you. My name is Brittany Foley. I'm a senior officer at the Canadian Consulate here in Detroit. For the Americans in the room, that's essentially the foreign affairs branch of the Canadian government. My day job, I do agricultural trade. So I help Canadian food and beverage producers expand in the US. But in 2019, our former Consul General Joe Comartin from Windsor said in a staff meeting that the bridge is underway. We're over all the hurdles. We're gonna start building it soon. How are we gonna make sure that this benefit is felt not in Michigan, not in Ontario, not in the US, not in Canada, but in Detroit and Windsor? And because I have a really good filter, I said it won't. And now I'm still working on it. So I said at the time, the bridge will move trucks through Detroit and Windsor. And that is why the governments would like to build it. They'd like to facilitate trade. If we want to make sure that this benefits these communities, we have to be intentional about that. And we have to start talking about it now. And that was probably a mistake of mine, but I'm happy to be doing it still. We looked back at the time at the consulate and thought this community comes together as a singular community in times of immense opportunity and in times of immense crisis. The opportunity that we really drew on at the time was the Amazon bid. And although that wasn't successful by the investment attraction measures of success, I think it was very successful in bringing the recognition to the influencers and the corporates and the governments of this region that we are stronger together and that we often, or that we both offer equal value to the other. And so what the premise of what is now the River Collaborative, which I believe, because I'm now distracted, stands for Regional Identity and a Vision for Economic Resilience.
That wins the acronym war today.
My best friend Sam Altman developed it.
Of course.
Yeah, no, he had some prompts though to work on. But we started pulling together the economic development, a select number of economic development partners on both sides of the river to say, how do we tell this story externally for the shared benefit? And how do we acknowledge that if advancing Macomb, right? Mm-hmm. If advancing Macomb can land a deal, if we can attract Toyota, say, someone not super active in this region, to Macomb, and there's no need to bring in this value proposition of this cross-border region. If it's just the border, that's fine, do it, go land that. But if you're not gonna land it, if Nashville's gonna land that deal, if Dallas is gonna land that deal, or anywhere else in North America is gonna land that deal, maybe we should pivot, and maybe we should not look at that border as a political barrier, as was discussed earlier, but as an opportunity that nowhere else in this continent offers, right? So you have a different immigration policy, you have a different tax incentive policy, you have a different labor pool, right? You have different labor, was it wage differentials? Is that what, yeah. And those things can complement each other. They don't have to compete against each other. So if, again, using my new best friends.
Let's make a deal.
Yeah, exactly. If we can then say, well, maybe we won't get 100%, but we'll get 80% by asking them to put a little bit of the investment in Windsor, just as we were doing in the Amazon idea, we all win together, right? And that goes both ways. We're seeing it now in the Stellantis facility in Windsor. In the battery facility, a lot of knock-on investment is on this side of the border as well, right? This is the integrated supply chains we've been talking about, right? And so we started with that premise and have been working on that. It got a little quiet during COVID. I thought it was a bad time to talk about forward-looking investment. But it really picked back up in the last couple of years. And then this year, this last panel touched on this, we had a big change, a sea change in the political environment. And that work on investment attraction has has slowed a little bit to the benefit of working on innovation and coordinating a cross-border innovation economy so that the companies that are emerging in these regions can access the resources that the other side offers and continue to internationalize locally. This is kind of how we're phrasing it, making it easier to be an international company at home, and also to develop some cross-border community cultural connections. So Jeanette, you brought up the WIF partnership. We had a group, Ryan, you sat on this group of our fermented the ad hoc table, coming together, figuring out how can we make people-to-people connections and really support the work we're all doing. So we're really excited to be focusing on that and coordinating with everyone here.
Yeah, thank you. Very interesting stuff. I've been lucky enough to know Brittany in a few different capacities, so I'm grateful our paths cross here. It's very interesting times. My old friend Richie Harrison, who I think has done some really incredible work in terms of bringing different disparate groups together through GLLA. Maybe that's what you want to talk about or not, but I just love the way Richie thinks about Detroit and the region and the future. So take it away, Richie.
Thank you. I appreciate that. Such a nice welcome. Also, let me say this. I'm glad that you all came back at 2:45. So, I was concerned, but I'm glad to see your faces, and I'm glad that everyone's here. Richie Harrison, as Francis mentioned, I am a long time, I'm an urban planner and worked for some time in the city of Detroit within many organizations doing community development, planning work, and as I look in the crowd, I see folks who I've had a chance to work with in some capacity, so some really good folks in the audience. And as you were speaking, Francis, one of the things that I was thinking about in my perspective that I'll bring into this conversation, and I've got to go back through some history just to kind of catch up to where I am now, where I'm a consultant and working with organizations that are doing work on the ground. But when I first started in planning and community development, I worked for an initiative. It was being funded by the Metro Detroit Regional Investment Initiative, which was being led by LISC. And this was an initiative that was focused on regional collaboration. And I had the opportunity to manage one of those collaborations between the Van Dyke 8 Mile Gateway Collaborative along 8 Mile Boulevard. But it was a really ambitious endeavor. And so the perspective that I bring into this conversation is really informed from experiences as a planner of working in communities and being a part of discussions where we were talking about regional collaboration within Metro Detroit, and how important that is, but also how difficult it is, and recognizing how challenging it is when we talk about regional collaboration. It's still a very, I would say, saying regional collaboration can evoke certain thoughts or feelings. I can say that in some ways it can be a challenging discussion, but I do feel that this is an important time for that. And so I've had a chance to work at organizations that brought in that regional focus, from working on cross-border collaboration along Jefferson Avenue to working with the Detroit Riverfront Conservancy and having a chance to support the work now going into there's an opening for Ralph C. Wilson Park, and having a chance to spend some time on that early, and how that helped to just inform my understanding about the importance of how we talk about Detroit and its connection to the region and what it means to build up assets for regional connection and how we leverage that. To working beyond the city of Detroit and working with leaders as the co-director of the Great Lakes Leadership Academy at Michigan State University, where I was working with leaders in helping to shape their perspectives on how do we as leaders focus on that vision for the future and connecting Detroit in its areas, and not only Detroit for that matter, but thinking statewide around the types of challenges that exist for people, and inspiring leaders to really work collaboratively towards the types of issues that we need to solve. And so I look forward to sharing more, but I want to also pause there, and I know want to hear from Ryan.
That's great. I've known Richie for a long time. Thanks, Richie. Ryan Donnelly, Windsor, Essex, and the work that you do. you walked right up to the podium and shook my hand, and it was, you had such a bright smile on your face. I'm like, oh, I know this guy from his internet picture. It was like,
yeah,
it was like right there.
Yeah.
So thanks for making the trip.
Thank you.
And yeah, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you're doing at the Chamber in Windsor, Essex.
You bet. So Ryan Donnelly, I'm the president and CEO of the Windsor Essex Chamber of Commerce. So what that means is, of course, the city of Windsor, which you all know, but then the surrounding municipalities. There's 7 municipalities surrounding it, creates the Windsor Essex Chamber of Commerce. All told, we represent about 750 businesses, which represents about 40,000 employees in our community. So, I mean, what might not seem a huge representation here in the Detroit side, that's about 17 to 18% of total employees in the region. So, I do represent quite a good percentage of the business interests in our community. I've only been doing that for about 10 months now. So my first day on the job was Donald Trump's 6th day in office. And needless to say, at the tip of the spear, if you will, between this Canada-US trade war that has created global perspective on our region, it's allowed me to share the story of Windsor and the importance of the regionalization between Windsor, Essex, and Detroit, approximately 100 times in media throughout the world. So it's been a fascinating time representing the business interests of my businesses and the community. And part of the reason I'm here is because even if there is this, let's call it long-term or even short-term disruption in our relationship at the federal level, or even provincial state level, which I don't necessarily think is the case, Windsor, Essex, and Southeast Michigan is so intrinsically tied economically that for me to not continue to build and grow this relationship between these two friends and neighbors would be doing a disservice to my economic base. So I continue to try to build these relationships, add on to the things that have been going on around us. I've got a number of different perspectives and where I came from in Windsor, Essex, and things I've done, but I'm quite the glue guy. I try to bring things together, and I try to allow all of us to kind of coalesce around ideas and bring that type of mentality together. So I'd like to bring that to our cross-border region, and that's part of the reason why I'm here. I look forward to talking more with all of you about that, so thank you.
Thank you, Ryan. Yeah. So yeah, quick cheers for everybody here. Thanks for giving us that sort of high level of the different projects and programs we have here. People who have worked in or working in government, economic development, community development, UNESCO efforts, and just sort of that high level awareness of our assets in academia. And but that's not it, or that's not everything. And there's more that we've heard from earlier. And what I guess I'd like to pose to everybody, and I'll give you Reno and Petra a chance to introduce yourself after this question, but please feel free to weigh in too, is who's missing? And it doesn't have to be an exhaustive list, but who would you like to work with more from your perspective in terms of this question of how we tie ourselves together better? I'll just open it up, and if you can be real brief, but just whoever wants to jump in, if you have an idea around that.
I'll jump in, and certainly not to preclude some of the comments I was going to make, but we always hear economic development, we think of auto sector, you hear things at the parts cross the borders 6 or 7 times, but one of the things we don't and we haven't seen today is from our arts and culture industries, because those are the things that travel across the border the easiest. And I would argue that arts and culture is the biggest thing that keeps us together as a region, more so than the manufacturing or the overlays of industrial things, but that arts and culture really is the fabric of what makes this region one region.
Thanks. Good point. Yes, well, we have.
Here we are.
We have culture. I was talking to someone in the break about arts and that piece of it, and I think we are doing that better. And like the film festival is one example. But yeah, does anybody want to riff off that?
Yeah, I'd love to. So going back to that film festival example, right, and kind of will tie it into my thought too, which is that came together because Vince and Georgie said we'd like to do this at a small table, and someone over here, specifically Eric Larson, said we'll do it with you, right? And so it was a little bit of spaghetti on the wall, right? Like let's throw ideas out and see who the partners are. So you know, what I would say is I don't know who I want to work with more. I want to know what other people are doing and what they need and how we can align, right? And so I think it's really important in this moment, in conversations like this, that we recognize that we are all doing valid things that deserve their own attention, and that not every table can do everything, right? And that we can support each other. It doesn't mean that I have to come to every meeting that you host, but that we stay in touch and we connect and we do that. But we are all limited. We are all, you know, cogs in that machine, right? So if we can maybe volunteer Francis to keep a list of all products. But no, if there's someone out there that can work on just saying, here's all the people interested in this and having organizations thinking about it, how do you connect with them? I think that would be wonderful and helpful.
Yeah, other thoughts?
Yeah, I think building off Brittany's point there that, yeah, arts and culture, for sure. But I think we all, and I'll speak for the Canadian side more, because I don't know the American side as nearly as well, but we have an awareness issue of what we all do, right? Case in point, I also teach the university as a sessional professor. Up until about 6 months ago, I didn't know RCE existed, right? And that's no fault of Annika's. Is it a fault of mine? No. I mean, but also at the same time, I'm now coordinating another group to create this cross-border efforts. And Annika goes, well, we're already doing that, right? And I've also learned more about, well, not necessarily River Collaborative, but Detroit River Project. Till now, I hadn't heard of it, right? So it's important that, I guess it's not necessarily who else we need at the table, but how do we share the information around that table?
But I would volunteer. You know what binds all of us together? Is our culture. It's not how many trucks you get off that line at Ford, Canada, or on this side of the border, or how many members of the chamber there are at, I used to be the member of relations director for the Detroit Chamber. There's 20,000 members, and I'm not sure how many are at membership you have. What binds this region together, because it is so culturally diverse and very rich, is that culture, is the culture. We have to start considering using our cultural assets as an economic driver. Economic heritage tourism in this world is billion-dollar business. That is, we need to focus, we need to get our minds around that. It's not necessarily a new bridge, though I sit on the bridge board, so I'm not gonna tell them I said that. But it's not necessarily just a bridge. It's not how many cars go across the bridge. It's not how many cars are being made. It's the story we're telling with the bridge going up. It's our stories. And we seem to think that arts and culture, and Reno brought this up, it's like, it's kind of a side, no, it's the umbrella that links us all together. That is what it is.
Yes, to your point, Kim, the thing when I was talking about our region, a broader region, and I mean, there's headlines saying the divorce between, you know, Windsor and Detroit, like in Germany, right? Like, what blew people away was when I talked about how familial we actually are, right? My sister marrying a doctor here during COVID, having an American baby, now living in Portland, Maine. My two best friends that are engineers working at Ford, my sister that works at Henry Ford, right? That blew people away around the world when I was talking about our region. And that means that it just doesn't happen other places. So to your point, you've nailed something that we have that doesn't happen anywhere else.
That is absolutely right. And as I said, you guys, you're learning this, but I've been preaching it for 25 years. So what I say to you is the culture and the heritage, as Reno brought up, it's not like another piece, it's the umbrella.
We haven't heard from Petra yet, and there's a point I wanted to make that I hope then we'll allow you to jump in, Petra.
Let's transition to, well, whatever you want to say, but
So
I do want to give you space, so introduce yourself.
hi, I'm Petra, and I just got here a little bit ago because I only found out about this a few days ago.
Yeah,
But,
so thank you very much for
yeah.
joining.
So thank you so much for having us, Francis. So I work at Transportation Riders United, and we've heard thank you. Yeah, we've heard a lot of big names today, like UNESCO, the cities, and I feel kind of silly working here at the community organization.
No,
But
that's the base. You gotta get that.
So yeah, we do transit advocacy, primarily on this side of the border. Unfortunately, Josh can't be here, but he's with Activate Transit Windsor Essex, and they're like our sibling across the border. And I guess I want to answer this question first because I grew up, whenever people ask me where I'm from, I say I'm from downriver, but I grew up on Groseal, which this might be the only room where everyone actually knows that place. But if you don't, it's an island in the river on the American side, and it was very interesting growing up, like between the countries. Like we'd always refer to things as being like on island, off island. I grew up, like, I swear half the people on the island are Canadian, like, and on my father's side, my family was originally living in Delray, which is the neighborhood that was demolished to build the new bridge. So a lot of these issues are very personal to me because I've always kind of thought of myself as a citizen of this broader region. And for me, kind of touching on arts and culture, music has always been a very important thing to me. I grew up listening to 89X, Winter's Alternative, and I still am right now, now that they're back. But yeah, just kind of like the connection of music. Like I listen to so many Canadian bands now because there's the quota that 89X has to play like a certain amount of Canadian bands. And that's something whenever I talk to people on the American side who listen to like alternative indie music, they're like, oh, I didn't know these bands. And I'm like, well, you should, they're amazing. And kind of getting that to just like more interactions with the people. So this kind of gets into my big spiel that I have today. But I lived for a long time without a car here in Metro Detroit. And last year, me and my partner decided to take a weekend trip to Windsor. So neither of us had a car that we could use, and like they'd never been over. It'd been a long time since my mom had taken us to Amherstburg to see our hometown from the other side, and we used the tunnel bus to get there. And it was like a wonderful experience. If you haven't gone, Windsor's a great city. Transit Windsor provides really good bus service for a smaller city. And come January of this year, we found out that Windsor City Council was looking to eliminate the tunnel bus, which is the only public, well, it's not the only public transit connection because there's Greyhound, but it is the main public transit connection between our two cities. And if that link was severed, that meant that riders over in Windsor wouldn't be able to come to Detroit, and all of us over here in Metro Detroit wouldn't be able to visit Windsor, and it would leave families separated, friends separated. There are people, like there was a news story about this couple that dated across the border who didn't have cars, and they wouldn't have been able to visit each other, so they would have had to break up. It was a terrible thing. But so this was all happening on the backdrop of like everything that's happening between our two countries right now. And we're in a bit of a weird spot because the tunnel bus was only funded by Transit Windsor and the City of Windsor. There was no involvement of the City of Detroit and DDOT, which is a real shame because it should have been a partnership between our two countries. Josh and Activate Transit did a great job mobilizing people over there, but they're a much newer organization. So I do communications at True, so I kind of look at this from like a social media, like people talking about it lens. And it all just kind of started with like us seeing this in the news and being, oh, we should tell people about this. We should make sure people know that this service is going to get cut and what actions they can do, either if they're an American or Canadian. And it like blew up for us. Like 20,000 people saw it. It got a lot of people over to Activate Transit Windsor Essex, since they are a much younger organization than True is. And we took quite a few time during these few weeks to like really push this advocacy thing. Like it's something that kind of came out of nowhere, that we didn't really know what we could do, but we didn't want this link to be severed, because a lot of times once transit is gone, it doesn't come back. So when we were trying to get people involved on our side of the border, and that's kind of the story I'll share, because Activate Transit was kind of doing their own thing on the other side. It was just like, how can we make sure that the city of Windsor knows this is important to Canadians and Americans, that it's not just Canadians coming over to America and being economic development for Detroit, that it's people spending US dollars over in Canada. And it was just like basically kicking and screaming, like constantly reminding our elected officials, talking about it on social media, making sure that the news was publishing stories about like there's people using this service whose lives are going to be impacted by this cut due to like trade war rhetoric. And ultimately, the story doesn't have a happy ending. The city of Windsor voted. The city of Windsor voted to save it by a 7-4 council vote, but the mayor of Windsor used his first ever veto to override council, which was very upsetting to see. And now we're in a kind of weird spot where the service officially ended in August, but The Link, a private bus company, has restarted a tunnel bus service after seeing like the uproar caused and how many people would use it if it was there and do use it. And like, we're not happy that the service was privatized, like that's not the outcome we wanted, but if we had to choose between a connection and no connection, it's better to have a connection. Yeah, and so.
How many people have taken the tunnel bus?
Oh wow, that's awesome.
That's great.
Yeah. If you haven't yet, you should take the link as well.
I was just going to say, so have you taken the new service?
I haven't yet, but
Has anybody taken the new service?
No, but we can plan a trip.
To be fair, it did start like 2 weeks ago, and they didn't say they were gonna start. I had to call them and be like, "Hey, have you guys started?" And they're like, "Yeah," and we're like, "Oh, cool." So if you ever need to know how to use it, talk to me, because I think I'm one of the only people in the world that know where the stops are, because there's no signs. It's a bit of a mess. But
Is it gonna be the same stops? It's not as the.
It's complicated, but they're doing like a shortened route, so it's some of the same stops, but like they don't go to Rosa Parks Transit Center. They have a stop that's like 2 blocks from the transit center in Windsor, so it's weird. And this is also all kind of in the backdrop of literally yesterday when they said they're bringing the train station back to Michigan Central, at least for the train that's going to go to Windsor. So there's a lot of stuff happening right now in transit between our two countries, with like the tunnel bus being a big topic this year, Amtrak looking at doing a run to Windsor from Chicago. We're gonna have the new bridge, which means you can bike and walk across the border, which is something you can't do right now. So it's very interesting to see what will happen.
Yeah, a lot of churning in the transit space, and I was gonna say to riff off this idea of the tunnel bus being like a vital thing, but maybe a small, like what was the budget?
It was like I think 1 million maybe.
1.4 million. Yeah. So relatively small amount of money to make this intimate connection a reality for people that really relied on it. So the point of bringing in this, and thanks Petra for like explaining that to people, is that it's the little things which might seem little but are actually big. And it's the big things that we need to, have both, and we deserve both. So I want to just riff off that idea, the little things with everybody. What are some easy ways that we can start connecting or keep connecting or do the things that are more about like just the day-to-day living here that is meaningful in this broader vision of connecting these two places?
I'll just real quickly say kind of the point I was talking about earlier, but just like go across the border.
Oh.
It's scary right now, but like if you have the means, go visit. You can do it without a car, you can do it with a car. And yeah, just show our neighbors that we exist, we're right across the border, and we care about each other. Whether it's like making friendships across the border, just doing a weekend trip. It seems like a very small thing in your day-to-day life, but like, if you actually go somewhere and show the people that like, hey, you're there, we care, then that'll have a big impact.
Richie, what's a little thing that we can do?
Across the border, I would say, I like what his argument said. Visit, make the trip across the border. It's one of the things that I was actually reflecting on in this conversation is I am old enough to remember, my younger years. I have to go back, but I remember when I used to be able to drive right over, like, just out of high school. It was a new world for me. As a young person, going across the border into Windsor to hang out, to visit restaurants, to eat barbecue. That's one of the things that I remember. But it was definitely a part of those just formative sort of young adult years. And as an adult, one of the things that I am very happy with and proud of is, I have, when my daughter was younger, we would take these kind of, just sort of one tank trips, kind of like, hey, let's just get in the car and just drive wherever we can go. And going across to Windsor was some of my favorite memories of just going across and spending time and visiting districts and just walking around. And I think because of that, it's kind of had the impression on my daughter, who now is just a traveler, so she not only goes across, but will go to Toronto or go to other places. So
I know I'm gonna call out Wojciech. Do you mind the story that you just told? I'll share it. Wojciech is and Anne, longtime friends. Wojciech's from Poland, and the first time he went to Canada was for the happy hour we had in June. But you've lived here how long?
To Windsor. It's your first time to Windsor.
Oh, what did I say?
You said Canada.
Sorry, Windsor. I'm sorry, Windsor.
On and off for almost 20 years.
Yeah, 20 years.
Why don't we hear from the former Windsor City Council?
Yeah, I would.
Sitting here and tell us about that Windsor.
I would like to hear Reno's take on the granular, his take on what makes the spice of life spicier between Windsor and Detroit.
Those Italian sandwiches.
Yeah.
So I also work for the Center for Cities and former city councilor. I think my perspective is more influenced by the fact that my parents immigrated from Italy to here, but my mom was American, lived in Detroit. My parents dated over here. Once they got married, we'd come probably over once a week to visit family. So coming to Detroit has been part of the DNA forever, and making it part of the cultural fabric. So how many of you have been over to Windsor in the last 6 months? It's a great turnout. So I would challenge you to do it monthly, and I'll say it from, something that hasn't been mentioned. You get 45 cents on your dollar just by going over the border. So everything you buy is discounted by up to 45 cents on the dollar. So when you go to Windsor, we've got a great food scene. My other life is a restaurant owner in the Fort City neighborhood that was mentioned, Petrella's Sandwich Shop. But explore the neighborhoods, go for walks in these neighborhoods, take time to pick out the restaurants, go for the dumplings, they're amazing. The food scene, especially with respect to some of the immigrant groups that have opened places, is phenomenal. Definitely punch way above our weight as far as size. But even for something like WIF starts next Thursday, is the opening night for the film festival. It runs 10 days until Sunday the 2nd. Go. I mean, there's hundreds of films shown for over the 10 days. Again, you get 45 cents on the dollar. Go early, have dinner, go see a film, go out after, come back, go to the wineries. Jeanette mentioned them earlier. Half an hour, 45 minutes from downtown Detroit, you could be on the shore of Lake Erie, overlooking the bluffs on the lake, sipping a glass of wine. These are all things that are afforded to you quickly and easily and very simply. And on top of everything else, you have that extra, push from the dollar right now that is fantastic for you guys. So, a lot of the things that were said today, there's a lot of things that are really heavy lifts. We talk about economic development, we talk about air quality, we talk about the environment, and sometimes we look at these things and it's like, well, how do we get involved? How do we do the push? And it's very hard to imagine how you do it, especially when there are so many things that make it hard. There's 6 levels of government between the 2 cities when projects come together. But really, when you reduce it down to the base level, is just go over, just start making those points of contact. Dorian used the word seeing the river as a seam as opposed to a barrier. And I really love that analogy, but when you really look closely at a seam, especially something, you can picture a welder welding a seam, it looks nice and smooth from 5 feet out. When you look very closely, it took millions of little sparks to create that seam. So those millions of little sparks has to be each one of you doing that work, making those connections, having those conversations. When you come back, when you have the conversations in places like this, you can actually really have a huge positive impact. For the people that I interact with, I come over all the time. I'm a season ticket holder for DCFC, different things like that. People come with me to games and stuff, and I've become almost this pseudo ambassador for a lot of the things that are happening over here because it's a natural fit. So, I would say take advantage of it, take advantage of everything that's there, come back, have those conversations. On this side, I always compare Windsor and Detroit to that. Detroit is that older, cool cousin. We're the little pesky kid that wants to hang around. You have no reason to pay attention to us, but we started getting bullied 9 months ago, and you did pay attention to us, and you had our back. So we appreciate that. But at the same time, bring us along more often. When there are things going on over here, invite us over. If there's things to partner on, WIF is doing more films over here. If there are things that are happening on this side that could spill over to that side, let's have those conversations. And it could be anything. It could be convincing the restaurant that you work at to make one of their slow nights, a Tuesday night, a Canadian money at par night. It works, and it's like there's lots of great restaurants over here that we would love to come to, but we can't afford it right now because we have to pay 50 cents extra on the dollar to go to them. So, if those little things add up to a lot, and it shows a lot of goodwill on the other side of the border.
Great comment.
Same sentiment, I echo this. Group activity, who has a passport? Who has the flag on their license? Who doesn't have a flag on their license? Get your license out. If you don't have it's not enhanced, it's the, is it enhanced? It's the enhanced license, yeah. So that you can seamlessly do this without having to run home and get your passport. Go get a tunnel pass. If you're really cheap, you can sign up for the pass in Canadian dollars, which is a little cheaper to cross. And then they go, oh, we just charge you $75 Canadian. Don't tell Tal I said that publicly.
Tal's my board chair, my boss.
But on the note about going to Windsor, they actually ran a campaign this semester, the 40 for 40, right? It was 40 small businesses. I think you can still see it, right? It might not get the passport, but you can still see these 40 businesses that are encouraging Americans to come over. It's a lot of cool coffee shops and bars and restaurants and things. But what I have started doing when we were doing our fiscal year budget last winter, my budget's in Canadian, and I was like, man, I can't spend as much this year. This really changed a lot. This was pre this administration. Just year over year, I lost like 10% on my budget, and then because I'm a little cheap, I was like, everything got cheap in Windsor. Like, if I go over and I spend more than $40 or so, the tunnel fare equals out. So if I have something that's gonna cost more than $100, I'm really saving money. So my mechanic is in Windsor now. My estheticians are in Windsor now. You know, and it's a funny little thought, right? But like I go over there yesterday, and then I end up at, literally, and then I end up at Devonshire at the Roots Kids pop-up, right? And just exploring and what people are saying. And so
Is this arbitrage?
Yeah. A community building arbitrage.
Community building arbitrage. That's maybe a good spot to go to the bar. Okay, a couple.
It's about alcohol though.
Yeah.
So the
Final thoughts.
The wine region. I don't know why San Francisco gets to claim that Napa is so special because it's an hour away. And we have a wine region a half hour away, and I think that the Cab Franc coming out of Lake Erie North Shore can hold up to any of that overpriced Pinot coming out of California. And let's just be honest, like most people don't, in San Francisco, they don't spend their whole weekend going up to Napa, but they tell the story of what a cool cultural asset is. The Bay, they don't all sail. Don't let them, you know, they just go to their coffee shops and go work on tech, right? Like that's all they do. But they tell this story that's so aspirational, and we have the same exact assets. And I don't know why we can't tell that aspirational story about this region too. With that, you know, let's go drink.
Richie had a final thought.
I'm really appreciating the conversation, and something that I wanted to go back to, and I feel like Kim evoked this thought, because I do think that there's an importance to us being able to educate our children, specifically in the city of Detroit, also around the idea of being able to visit Canada and recognizing the significant history of Canada in the Underground Railroad, and being able to recognize that history. And so as I'm often, on the riverfront and overhear conversations and see folks pointing, and I'm always thinking about, like, how do we make certain that we ensure that that you get an understanding of the importance of that history that's there. And that's one area that I go back to, just in relation to your other question about who aren't we collaborating with. I'm happy to hear that there's an educational curriculum that's been developed around bringing that importance, but I would love to see more youth having the opportunity to actually go across and be able to walk around and sort of learn about that history and experience it. Because again, as a young person, that was one of the things that was really impactful for me.
Yeah, final thought. We'll give everybody a quick final thought.
So this will be my wrapping up thought, and cause I gotta make this feel, because I'm like the community organizer here, but especially in this moment that we find ourselves in, where our governments are antagonizing each other, more so on one side than the other, it feels like we're all very small. And we talked a lot about how one of the little things you can do is just go over, be present, and as we're all sitting here at this conference and we're gonna go out into the world today, I just want to remind you all that there are so many organizations who are promoting work that is advancing our region as a whole, whether it's their mission or whether it is just on the occasional project or advocacy action that you can get involved with today, and just work towards making this region so much better and so much more united. If we all today just went and either got a membership that's cheaper than the price of a cup of coffee a month for a community organization, called our leaders and we're hey, this issue is important to me. For me, that's transit. For you, it's probably something else, or maybe it is transit. You should talk to me. But just call your state leaders, your city councilors. Be hey, this the connections between Detroit and Windsor are important to me. I want you to pursue that. Transit's important to me. I want you to pursue that. Economic development is. They'll try to make that happen, or they will make that happen, or they'll lose the next election. So they want to make it happen. So just in this moment where there's so many big scary things happening, just remember that as a community, if all of us come together and actually fight for this future we want, this united future we want, we can make it happen. We all just have to step a little outside of our comfort zone and take that step to do it.
Any more final thoughts?
Sure.
Yeah, quick final thought.
what Reno said is really important. I have been living basically straddling the river all of and I'm very proud of that. People say I shouldn't be, no, but my 66 years straddling the river. As I said, my family's been here since 1833. We are the only, do you know that you are looking at the granddaughter of a family with their name on a street sign? Has been since 1964. The only black family in Windsor. Did you know that? There you go. I'm a Watkins. I spent basically my childhood in the summers on the Canadian side. Most of my family is still Canadian, and spent that time, that formative time, learning Canadian history as well as American history when I was in school. So I've grown up with both sides of the question, which leads back to the UNESCO designation. The UNESCO designation is because of, you brought up the Underground Railroad, we were the final stop, we are the final stop. Out of the 100,000 that actually use the Underground Railroad network, we estimate that between 30 and 35,000 crossed our 32-mile stretch of what we call river. So considering that, we are the end of the road. So there are many stories. Wars were fought. We have 2 presidents that literally commanded historic Fort Wayne, 2 United States presidents. We have so much history that we don't know about. And again, our history and our culture, the indigenous story, is what links both sides of this river, this stream that is now a river, that binds us together. That's the umbrella. And we need to think like that, broader. Think about the culture that's binding us. It's not how many cars go over the Ambassador Bridge. That's not it. It's our cultures that bind us. So I just say that I think we've gotten here at the right time, and I'm ready to keep it working because I've been doing this almost by myself for the last 20 years. So I'm ready for, thank God. Yeah. Come on, help, yes.
All right.
Just a thanks, and I guess a plea. Those small steps that everyone is being urged to take in whatever space you do, whether it's a researcher, business owner, et cetera, et cetera. We're in a moment of crisis right now, and everyone is really motivated to keep building all those, tying all those threads together. The plea is those small threads matter all the time. The air pollution question is shared always. The economic integration is there always. So I hope that what we're building here will continue when, let's hope, some of the immediate challenges are lessened.